You knew her face. Everyone did. In the early 90s, it was everywhere. On magazine covers, on billboards, in music videos, and in every fashion campaign that mattered. Helena Christensen wasn't chasing fame. She didn't have to. Her presence simply stayed with people. Not loud, not calculated, but unforgettable. She became one of the defining supermodels of her generation. But behind the camera flashes and perfect photos was something deeper. This isn't just a story about beauty. It's about what beauty costs. Because while the world obsessed over her image, few understood the pressure, the long hours, the silence, the unraveling relationships. The moment she quietly stepped behind the camera, just when she could have stayed in front of it forever, Helena saw it all, and she lived through more than most ever will. Before the runways and the cameras, Helena Christensen was just a soft-spoken girl growing up in Copenhagen. Born on Christmas Day, 1968, to a Danish father and a Peruvian mother, Helena was a mix of two vastly different worlds. Her mother was passionate and intense, her father calm and grounded. Somewhere in between, Helena quietly found her balance. She wasn't trying to stand out, but even in childhood, she did. Her striking green eyes, her calm, unreadable gaze, her tall, lean frame. She didn't dress to impress. She didn't try to be noticed. And somehow, people always noticed anyway. She spoke Danish, Spanish, English, Swedish, and a bit of French. Not for glamour, but out of necessity. Nobody speaks Danish, she once joked, so you just adapt. Her early life was simple. Long walks with her mother, quiet routines, a modest home. She was tall and skinny, and that made her an easy target. The teasing stayed with her, but she learned to carry it differently. By 17, she had already caught the attention of the fashion world. She won Miss Universe Denmark and competed internationally, but didn't love it. It felt scripted, controlled. What came next felt more real. She entered the Ford Models Look of the Year contest in 1987. She didn't win, but that didn't matter. Fashion insiders had seen enough. Soon she was on a one-way flight to Paris. The fairy tale had officially begun. But fairy tales rarely tell the full truth. When Helena Christensen landed in Paris, she wasn't a star. Not yet. She was a teenager with a portfolio and quiet eyes, stepping into one of the world's loudest industries. The city moved fast. Castings, rejections, fittings, photo shoots, designers who lived and breathed fashion. It wasn't Denmark anymore. In her words, there, it just comes out in a magazine and that's it. Here, it's hysteria. Helena adapted. She always did. She didn't speak French fluently. She wore secondhand clothes, but she had something that couldn't be faked. Presence. She wasn't loud. She didn't sell an image. She simply was. And that made people stop. Photographers began to notice. Fabrizio Ferri captured her quiet intensity in shadowy black and whites. Then came Peter Lindbergh, who wanted emotion, not perfection. With him, Helena looked less like a model and more like someone with a story. And then, Herb Ritz. In 1991, she starred in the music video for Chris Isaak's Wicked Game. There was no script, just Helena, the beach, and a feeling. The wind was cold. Her feet bled on volcanic rock. She never complained. Her gaze distant, hypnotic, burned into the memory of an entire generation. That video didn't just launch the song. It made her unforgettable. From there, she was everywhere. Vogue, Elle, Harper's Bazaar, Versace, Chanel, Valentino, YSL, Revlon, Guess. Her image spanned continents, yet she remained just slightly out of reach. She gave everything to the camera, but never gave all of herself. By the early 90s, Helena Christensen had become more than a model. She was a cultural icon, the kind that didn't need to chase the spotlight because it followed her everywhere. But unlike others swept up in the supermodel spectacle, Helena remained grounded. While some leaned into fame, she leaned away from it. She rarely gave interviews. She wasn't building a brand. She wasn't trying to become a household name. And maybe that's why she became one. Fashion in the 90s was loud, a constant performance. But Helena moved quietly, refusing to become a persona. "I've never had a strategy," she once said. "I just follow my instinct. If something doesn't feel right, I walk away." And she did, repeatedly. No entourage, no overexposure. She worked constantly, but never to the point of losing herself. Still, fame has a cost, even for those who don't ask for it. The pace was brutal. Flights, fittings, shoots, often in the same week. There was no space to slow down. Models were expected to look perfect, act iconic, and stay relevant. And when you broke, you did it quietly. Helena didn't speak about it back then. No one really did. But years later, she opened up about the mental toll, the burnout, the pressure, the loneliness of always having to be on. "No one talked about mental health," she said. "Now I make sure they know it's okay to." She didn't censor herself in that conversation. She never does. But when she spoke, it mattered. She wanted younger models to know it's okay to ask for help, it's okay to say no, it's okay to disappear for a while. Even as the world couldn't get enough of her, Helena protected herself by staying quiet, staying calm, and staying just far enough outside the frenzy to keep her soul intact. In the whirlwind of Helena's fame, there was one story the public never truly grasped: her relationship with Michael Hutchence, the charismatic lead singer of INXS. They met in the early 90s, both already stars. From the outside, they looked like a perfect pair. Glamorous, famous, untouchable. But their love story wasn't built on image. It was private, raw, intense. They lived together in Paris and Copenhagen, traveled constantly, rarely appeared at events together. Helena once said, "We loved each other deeply. He trusted me. We had something very special." But in 1992, something shifted. While visiting Helena in Copenhagen, Michael was punched during a late-night altercation with a taxi driver. He fell, hitting his head on the pavement. The injury damaged his sense of smell and taste, but it did more than that. It changed him. Helena later said the trauma dulled his spark. His moods grew darker. He was still Michael, brilliant, sensitive, but harder to reach. He once told her, "If I have children, I'll never be able to smell my baby." It broke her heart. She stayed. Through the confusion, the doctor's visits, the unraveling. She watched as people surrounded him with distractions, but no one helped him. She said it wasn't glamorous. It was quiet, messy, and full of grief. By 1995, they parted ways. Helena said nothing. She never fed headlines, especially when the press swirled with stories, especially after Michael began a public relationship with Polly Yates. Helena stayed silent. And when Michael Hutchence died in 1997, Helena still didn't speak. Some criticized her silence, but she later explained it was too painful. Years later, in the documentary Mystify, she finally opened up, not to romanticize, but to tell the truth, that she saw him change, that she couldn't stop it, that some pain is too sacred for the public. That kind of love doesn't fade. It lingers, not in headlines, but in the quiet spaces of memory. After everything, the runways, the campaigns, the fame, the heartbreak, Helena Christensen didn't vanish. She just evolved. Not with fanfare, not to prove anything. She simply picked up a camera and turned toward the world with a different eye. Photography wasn't a pivot. It was always there. She had carried a camera since before she ever stepped onto a runway. On sets, she paid close attention. She watched the greats, Herb Ritts, Peter Lindbergh, Ellen von Unwerth, and asked questions, quietly learning. Eventually, her work appeared in Nylon, Marie Claire, and galleries in Berlin, New York, Copenhagen. Her style? Intimate, raw, fleeting, focused not on perfection, but on emotion, the quiet seconds between poses. Meanwhile, she still modeled, but only on her terms. No longer racing, no longer needing relevance. She chose projects based on meaning, not momentum. Her resilience showed in the details. Like the time a Vogue shoot in the Indian Ocean went sideways. The boat broke down, there was no food, no radio, the rocks sharp as glass. She stayed calm, got the shot. No drama. As she aged, she did the unthinkable in fashion. She stayed. In her 40s, she posted lingerie and swimwear photos, barefaced and unfiltered. Not to make a statement, but simply because she felt like it. Some people praised her, others criticized. She didn't flinch. The key to confidence, she once said, is mostly not caring what anyone else thinks. But behind the camera and the calm was something deeper, intention. She didn't try to stay young, she stayed true. She told younger models to slow down, to ask for more, to protect their space. And while the world chased attention, Helena chose quiet. She built a life around curiosity, photography, design, travel, even activism. Through her work with Oxfam, she visited Peru, her mother's homeland, listening to farmers, learning about water scarcity and climate change. No press, no spotlight, just connection. And then came motherhood. In 1999, she had her son, Mingus. It didn't end her career, but it changed everything. She no longer rushed. If something felt off, she said no. Simple as that. I still loved what I did, she said, but I thought more about what mattered beyond it. Helena Christensen never reinvented herself. She didn't need to. She just kept choosing who to be, softly, fully, and without apology. You may know her face, but now, maybe, you know a little more of the life behind it.